This week in the business of tech, we'll cover a fascinating study that reveals 66% of people are turning to ChatGPT for their IT advice, Gen Z leading the charge. From the world of social media, Twitter's latest API restrictions are stirring up concern, potentially limiting vital information sharing for emergency services. Small and mid-sized businesses are surging, with a 20% increase and a whopping $400 million in monthly downstream credit. This comes as cloud investments are accelerating amidst the ongoing economic uncertainty. Generative AI making headlines too, with a recent study showing it can increase productivity by 14%, and it's the less skilled workers who are reaping the most benefits. In the realm of cybersecurity, researchers have developed a database-oriented operating system for faster ransomware recovery. And in software, Microsoft is planning to unbundle Office and Teams, a move that comes amid an EU antitrust review. Sadly, there's been a decline in C-suite support for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts over the past year. And in compensation news, Service Leadership's 2023 IT Solution Provider report reveals that more profitable firms are paying less for staff and management positions. All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification bell, and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. QuoteWorks, the leading solution to create professional branded quotes and proposals in just minutes. With over 55 integrations across PSAs, distributors, accounting, and more, QuoteWorks has more integrations than any other quoting solution for VARs and MSPs. And best of all, genuine people. They're there for you. No need to create tickets, instead, people on the other end of a call. Want to try it for free and find out how to start saving time creating quotes? Visit quoteworks.com/. IT service provider Electric surveyed 1,000 people to find out where they get their IT advice. A whopping 66% of respondents said they went to ChatGPT for help with their IT problems, according to the study. Gen Z is the generation most likely to seek IT advice from ChatGPT at 83%, followed by millennials at 67%. Gen X and baby boomers didn't trail too far behind at 50% and 48%. They also looked at the accuracy of these results, and as you might guess, it varies, but ChatGPT outperformed TikTok. In other sentiment data, Pew Research looked at the impact on jobs overall. 62% of respondents think AI will impact workers generally, but only 28% believe it will impact them personally. About half think it will have no impact, or the impact will be minor. The significant insight is that Americans oppose AI use in making final hiring decisions by a 71% to 7% margin, and a majority also oppose AI analysis in making firing decisions. Pluralities oppose AI use in reviewing job applications and determining whether a worker should be promoted. Beyond that, majorities do not support the idea of AI systems being used to track workers' movements while they are at work or keeping track of when office workers are at their desks. Why do we care? It shouldn't shock anyone that customers are trying out generative AI tools for solutions. This also shouldn't frighten anyone either. Basic support services has trended to commodity for a long time, and specific business advice is of higher value. And we can see that value in the sentiment. Humans don't want AI making decisions about hiring and firing, and there will be a list of similar roles that humans need to continue to be the decision makers. Supplemented by additional information, but not replaced. And it's that way of thinking that will be powerful. There's been a lot of chaos over on the Blue Bird app this weekend, and frankly, it's all a lot of noise I didn't want to cover. But buried within that is some reporting around the after effects of recent changes that Twitter made to restrict access to its previously open AI. Quoting from The Verge, Twitter's API service, after its changes, lets users post 1,500 tweets per month for free. Beyond that, prices can increase steeply. The hobbyist-oriented basic tier allows users to post 3,000 tweets for $100 a month, and a low-cost enterprise plan could reportedly soar as high as $42,000. And for many emergency accounts, the free tier won't be enough. Twitter's new restrictions, for instance, could affect InsaWeb, the Forest Service's information management system for wildfire. InsaWeb tweets updates on active fires across the U.S. during peak fire season, when several regions of the U.S. are simultaneously ablaze. Quote, "We could easily reach that 1,500 limit," says Stanton Flora, a spokesperson for the National Interagency Fire Center and the U.S. Forest Service. It could also be bad news for local fire agencies, sheriff's departments, and 911 dispatch centers, which residents near a blaze might likely follow. I've been on Twitter for 15 years on some of the very first large fires were used in California, Flora says. Twitter's just especially well suited for fire information because of the brevity and the economy of just being able to repeatedly send out short messages. Why do we care? There's a space of business cases around notification where Twitter is, or was, a viable platform. If you're working with customers who leverage it in this way, from schools to governments to health organizations, I wanted to highlight this. I know I initially missed this set of use cases when considering the API changes at Twitter, and I thought listeners might have missed it too. Leave it to Rich Freeman over on Channelholic to find some good data for me to share. He interviewed D&H Distributing's Dan Schwab in his newsletter and got these tidbits. Their SMB business is up 20% so far this year. But I noticed this. They are adding $400 million in incremental downstream credit per month. Rich also caught a study by Archaea that shows 98% of businesses plan to increase their investment in cloud services. The research showing. That's not despite the shaky economy, but because of it. 47% of survey respondents said economic conditions had led them to accelerate their adoption of cloud infrastructure and services. And to quote Rich directly, quote, "Such numbers point to a welcome fact of life for IT providers. Most businesses will happily boost spending in tough times on product and services that make them more efficient. And that is what it's all about." Why do we care? Rich's insight is one I share, so I want to add one. If distribution is leaning into credit, providers should be taking advantage of this. You are not the bank. You should not offer terms. You should not float money for customers. If you want to offer terms, leverage someone else's credit, which is where distribution can provide significant help. You are not the bank. The first studies around productivity with AI are arriving. A working paper by the National Bureau of Economic Research with Stanford and MIT found that access to generative AI can increase workers' productivity by 14% on average, as measured by the amount of customer issues the agents could resolve per hour. The study found that the productivity increase disproportionately benefited workers with less skill and experience. The AI tools helped fill the experience gap. Workers using AI with 2 months tenure performed as well as workers with 6 months tenure who didn't use AI. As a result, the study found that high-skill workers don't have as much to gain from using AI assistance, since the AI recommendations are essentially imitating the knowledge the high-skill workers already possess. Google announced that its Bard chatbot now can help with programming. It can now generate, debug, and explain code in 20 programming languages. The company has also moved the engineering team responsible for AI chips into Google Cloud. They also combined their 2 AI research labs, DeepMind and Google Brain, as they look to accelerate their AI progress. Google also has announced Cloud Security AI Workbench, a cybersecurity suite powered by a specialized security AI language model called SecPalm. Cloud Security AI Workbench spans a range of new AI-powered tools, like Mandiant's Threat Intelligence AI, which will leverage SecPalm to find, summarize, and act on security threats. Finally, the company has also announced they are opening its security products to integrations from competitors. Bing 2 with more upgrades, support for latex markup, a reduction of end-of-conversation triggers, and news grounding, as well as fixing problems with the chatbot triggering duplicate searches and reducing errors that would lead to a chatbot not giving a response. The team at VPN Mentor sent over some data on bias in AI-generated images. Yes, it's what you think. Examples include DALL-E results for nurses returning predominantly women, CEO mainly returning men, or basketball players returning primarily men. Finally, with the concern over the coming AI spam flood, I wanted to highlight some reporting by Vice, who have found the first obvious tell for those who are lazy about using it, leaving in phrases as an AI language model, and I cannot generate inappropriate content. Experts do anticipate more sophisticated, personalized, and targeted spam generated with AI. Why do we care? The headline data on productivity is validation of impression rather than revelation. You can give less skilled employees access to information faster. This continues to support the assistant rather than the replacement model. When you note the apparent tell of the lousy use of AI, cutting and pasting AI content, like those not even editing the results, it's lazy and shows the best applications. It should accelerate people rather than replace them, which leads to improvements. The space is iterating very fast. File this one under Remember for the Future. This week at the RSA conference, researchers will show off their Database-Oriented Operating System, or DBOS for short. The idea? Rather than a file-based operating system, a database-driven one structured around databases that save and track all events and changes occurring within the OS. That should mean recovering from ransomware means rolling back a machine to the previously safe state within minutes. With a file-based system, users still have to make backups of that data, which can also be affected with malicious malware if not set up correctly. Additionally, recovering using those backups takes up additional time. Recovery can occur within minutes using the new systems. A key element, because it's table-based, every change is recorded. Why do we care? This is a distinctly long-term, but an idea I want to consider in the larger context of question assumptions. Providers are precisely the group to raise use cases and new implementations that product designers had not considered, and re-examining old assumptions is worthwhile as the landscape changes. Put this one on your radar. Kaseya Connect is this week, and the company has announced 2 acquisitions. First, Vonahai, the automated network testing solution, and second, Audit, AUD, capital I and capital T, the sales presentation solution. The company also announced the Kaseya Cyber Insurance Fast Track Program. Through the program, Kaseya partners, customers, and end users leveraging its security suite, including Rocket Cyber, Datto EDR, Graphis, Bullfish ID, and Dark Web ID, are immediately eligible for cyber coverage at discounted rates. They also announced a new certification offering. Why do we care? I might have initially focused on the insurance partnership, as that's an area of interest for me and a trend we've been tracking, until I dug into some community sentiment. I do listen, after all. Kaseya is not particularly popular, broadly, with many in the MSP community. But admittedly, throwing a bunch of frowny faces isn't exactly a strategy. Until I noticed a comment. Quote, I'm going to demand that any contracts we sign with vendors give us automatic opt-out if they sign with Kaseya. And a follow-on. Quote, if everyone on this Reddit did this and was actually serious and followed through every single time with a request, it would send a clear message to vendors throughout the channel. It's actually so simple and so brilliant, as well as easy to do. This would make companies think twice about whoring themselves if a great number of their customers had this legal opt-out. If they ever decided to go the way of the dark side. Time to fight fire with fire. And this is why we care. This isn't a new thing. In fact, contracts often have a clause about the transferability of the agreement upon sale. You don't have to sign any contract. and you can negotiate anything you want. I'm no lawyer, but this isn't legal advice. Know that you are the customer, and you can negotiate any clause you like. Don't just get angry on message boards. Make changes in your business practices. Here's one from the information. Microsoft will begin letting customers buy its Office software without Teams collaboration app included, unbundling the products that were previously automatically sold together, the Financial Times reported on Monday. The move could help Microsoft head off a formal antitrust investigation in the EU. The European Commission, the EU's regulatory body, has been reviewing Microsoft's software bundling practices in response to a 2020 complaint filed by Slack that accused Microsoft of anti-competitive behavior for automatically including its Teams software every time a customer purchased Office. Slack, which competes with Teams, has since been acquired by Salesforce. Why do we care? If you doubt the EU's ability to shape policy and products, here's the counterpoint. Sure, Microsoft is known for making its product available in nearly infinite combinations and SKUs, yet this signals how regulators can impact purchasing and offer new options for providers to sell. I'm going to pull this one right from CIO Dive. C-suite endorsement of company-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts has decreased by 18% in the past 2 years, according to an April 19th press release from research firm DDI. The report reflected an increase in companies that did not offer DEI programs. From 2020 to now, the number jumped from 15% to 20%. This decline in support for inclusion and belonging work has, quote, left many leaders, especially those who are women and from minority racial and ethnic backgrounds, questioning their company and role. DDI Center for Analytics and Behavioral Research Director Stephanie Neal said. A Glassdoor report released in late 2022 suggested that DEI progress has stalled. By Glassdoor's count, the number of diversity and inclusion initiatives cataloged jumped from 29% in 2019 to 43% in 2021, but that rate dipped slightly to 41% in 2022. Similarly, a Gartner report released in January suggested that leaders are lackadaisical in adopting inclusion-focused values, with DEI leaders expressing exasperation at the lack of buy-in from business leaders. To address this trend, labor experts have confirmed to HR Dive that business leaders' hands are slipping off the wheel regarding DEI. The solution? HR managers can draw out how inclusion and belonging are tenets of employee engagement, a key battleground in the ongoing war for talent. Why do we care? This investment can offer a competitive advantage in a world of tight labor, as highlighted here. Combining the right thing to do with the smart thing to do for that opportunity is a clear path, and I encourage leaders to see this as an advantageous move. Why wouldn't you want to be better at employee engagement and thus retention when labor is at such a premium? Service Leadership has released its 2023 IT Solution Provider Compensation Report. The report revealed that more profitable providers tend to pay less for staff and non-owner manager positions than less profitable ones. On staff positions, the best-in-class paid approximately 9% less than the median and 13% less than the bottom quartile. For managers, best-in-class paid approximately 9% less than the median and 17% less than the bottom quartile. Quote, there is widespread belief that because a provider is more profitable and financially successful, they pay their employees more. But the data proves the exact opposite is true, said Peter Kujima from Service Leadership. The least profitable firms pay more for both staff and management positions, tie less of that pay to incentives, gave the largest increases in 2022, and are planning to do the same in 2023. The data is compelling as to why some companies are doing well and others struggle. The report also showed a close correlation between provider profitability and the percentage of variable compensation paid to staff and management. The best-in-class paid a materially higher amount of variable compensation for staff and managers. For staff positions, best in class tied 9.6% of total annual earnings to variable compensation, while the bottom quarter paid 5.8%. For managers, best in class tied 16.9% of manager total annual earnings to variable comp, while the bottom quarter tied only 8.2%. Now, in the survey population, the average MSP had 25.5 employees distributed between departments or functions. That's up 23% from the 2016 edition of the report. The average MSP had around 74% of employees dedicated to service delivery functions in their org. For non-service delivery roles, 11% of employees make up sales and marketing. This is followed by 11% for general and administration, and the remaining 4% are owners. Why do we care? Before we leap to conclusions, note that the survey population is bigger than what most consider the average provider. Just remember that as you consider the data. I think the headline is distracting. This isn't that they pay less. They do a better job of linking compensation to outcomes and can manage costs. Don't immediately assume you pay your people too much. Two thoughts. First, focus on that link to outcomes. Second, remember that trying to pay above average quickly leads to unsustainable costs. If wages grow 23% every year, that means every 3.5 years, the salary doubles. That math will get you every time. Firewalla has announced its new Firewalla Managed Security Portal, designed explicitly for multi-tenancy and thus MSPs. With the new security portal, Firewalla offers a web interface that allows its users to quickly manage as many devices as they want, set up network flows, rules, and alarms. More sophisticated users can also use the tool to create VPN meshes to create a secure network between their boxes. Developers can also use Firewalla's new APIs and webhooks to integrate the new service with their own application. SaaS Alerts is launching a new module called Unify, which lets MSPs correlate device data from RMM agents with SaaS account security events. Unify connects SaaS application event data with the devices that end users are leveraging to create a unified security view of the user. For example, users today often provide a password and multi-factor authentication token. But MFA hijacking has changed the game, according to SaaS Alerts. This new solution can also require the user to access the SaaS application from a known device. Slack has launched Canvas, which is easy to explain, like a Google Doc for each channel. It's there now. Finally, in other product news, Microsoft plans to move Microsoft 365 apps onto a single domain, the cloud.microsoft, to start, with only net new services deployed on the domain. As for existing workloads, those, quote, have broader implications to consider and will transition at a slower pace. Why do we care? I have a bias towards Firewalla as an initial crowdfunder to the product, which is why I noticed them too. But it was their difference in entry to the market, which is why I noted them. Think new entrants can't join even in established markets? Well, nope, there's one. The Slack and Microsoft news are very tactical, so I mentioned them. The SaaS Alerts one is more interesting, adding insights to RMM data that wasn't there. It's more 1 + 1 is 3. I tend to like to group earnings reports rather than handling them individually. Microsoft had a very solid quarter, quoting the information. 7% higher revenue as growth as cloud business and commercial software sales helped offset the bottom falling out of devices and PC-related software sales. In contrast, Google's parent Alphabet eked out just 3% top-line growth, a result of the stalled digital ad market, which accounts for most of its revenue. Alphabet had some good news to highlight, however. For the first time, its cloud computing unit turned an operating profit of $191 million. You'd have good reason to be wary of that number. Alphabet revealed on Friday that it changed how it allocates costs against its businesses in a way that made the cloud unit's bottom line look much healthier. Still, let's not be nitpickers. Google's cloud revenue increase of 28% in a period when companies are scrutinizing spending on IT is a decent result, and it shows the wisdom of Alphabet keeping its investment in the business, which reduces its reliance on advertising. Indeed, Microsoft Azure matched Google Cloud in revenue growth, which is impressive given Azure is bigger. It also performed better in search with 10% growth, although that's less impressive given that Microsoft is much smaller in that sector, so it's easier to post faster growth. And revenue from Office 365 and other business software grew 11% year over year to $17.5 billion, compared to 7% in the previous quarter. PC-related businesses are down, with Windows revenue from computer makers down 28%, and revenue from the devices business, that including Surface, down 30%. End quote. Let's note something in the Meta earnings calls. While the company overall has managed costs, their Reality Labs group doing the metaverse had their operating loss dip slightly, but is still running at an annualized loss of $16 billion, up from last year. And finally, Amazon outperformed on their AWS revenue numbers, which is what I was watching for. Sales rose about 16%, down from 20% last quarter. Why do we care? Microsoft is firing on all cylinders and is doing a successful pivot to its new businesses from its old. If you're a cloud partner, you should be very pleased. Google may just be figuring out this cloud business, and big numbers are hard for Amazon. But most importantly, Meta is just shoveling money at something that doesn't appear to be on the horizon for customers. The metaverse isn't something they're actively selling, also for that earnings call. Axios is reporting about PwC US's plans to upskill its workforce on AI, spending $1 billion over the next 3 years on its 65,000 workers. Their plans involve partnering with Microsoft and using its Azure OpenAI platform to build products and technologies for its clients and itself. The partnership will, quote, allow us to teach models in our controlled environment, not in a public space, a concern many clients have. Joe Atkinson, PwC's Chief Products and Technology Officer, tells Axios. And while I'm on workers, according to a recent survey commissioned by the cloud security platform Devo, the vast majority of cybersecurity workers have used an AI tool without authorization at work. 80% of 200 IT security professionals admitted to using such a tool, while a further 23% said they were aware a colleague had done so. While the survey doesn't identify which tools, 78% said they felt their organization would request that they cease using the software if they became aware of it, at least until a risk assessment could be carried out. Why do we care? Those are the security people. They're the ones who are using software without permission. Remember that the next time you get frustrated with users in general. The people who know better ignore the policies. And additionally, note how much they value AI and break policy over it. And that AI value resonates so much that PwC is training its people. Sure, this is the kind of early PR one does to send a signal to customers, but it's a signal to customers. Providers should consider their plans here and how they plan to signal customers that they are serious about AI. Colorado became the first state to pass a right to repair law for farmers, which forces manufacturers to provide the necessary manuals, tools, parts, and software. Lawmakers in at least 10 other states have introduced similar legislation, including Florida, Maryland, Missouri, New Jersey, Texas, and Vermont. Why do we care? I interview Larry Williams of the Technology Association of Georgia in this weekend's bonus episode. I wasn't aware of the organization and its insight into the very active state-level technology lobbying that happens. They're against right to repair, which we talk about, plus insights into how they work with groups like CompTIA. We're tracking these laws generally, but there's more to learn about how they happen. Thanks for watching this week in the Business of Tech. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSP Radio. It's our give what you want model where you set the value of what you think the content is worth.
If you like this show, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary podcast, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue subscribe button. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all of them, and I look forward to talking to you next time.